What if I told you that one day your most trusted asset could just disappear, not because you lost it, but because the government took it from you? Sounds crazy, right? But it's happened before. In 1933, the U.S. government did the unthinkable. With just a signature, they confiscated gold from American citizens. No warning, no debate, no military raids, just a stroke of a pen. And here's the twist. It could happen again. Fast forward to today, and silver, something most people think of as just an industrial or precious metal, has just been reclassified as a strategic resource by the U.S. government. Now, silver isn't just about coins or jewelry. It's tied directly to national security, defense, and even clean energy. It's critical. But here's the shocking part. It won't take a new law or a televised press conference for the government to take control of your silver. In the event of a national emergency, silver could be redefined as a public resource, frozen, seized. Not because you did anything wrong, but because the government decided it needed your silver for national security. Sounds like a stretch? Stick with me. Because if you think this can't happen in today's world, you're about to learn why it might be more likely than you think. Now, you might be thinking, wait, silver isn't like gold. It's just a metal for making things, right? That's what most people believe. But here's the thing. What's just a metal to you could be a strategic asset to the government. Silver's new status as a critical national resource isn't just a minor reclassification. It means silver is now tied to everything from the power grid to military defense and even the clean energy initiatives that the government has promised. So let me ask you, what happens when the government needs access to silver and it no longer belongs to you? Think about the implications. If silver is critical to the country's defense and energy infrastructure, do you honestly believe the government would hesitate to take it if a crisis struck? It wouldn't be a raid. It wouldn't be a dramatic headline in the news. It would simply be a matter of changing the rules. A clause buried deep in a bill or a sudden executive order, and just like that, your silver could be seized. But here's where it gets even more unsettling. This isn't some hypothetical what if. This has already happened in history, and it was easier than you think. Let's talk about the unthinkable, the government seizing your silver. You might think that can't happen. It's too extreme. But let's look at the facts. In 1933, when the government confiscated gold, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It was by design. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102, and with one stroke of a pen, he made it illegal for Americans to own gold. And the penalty? Up to 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Today's equivalent of over $200,000. Imagine that. People lost their wealth, not because of anything they did wrong, but because the government decided it needed their gold to stabilize the economy during the Great Depression. And here's where it gets chilling. After collecting all that gold at $20.67 per ounce, the government revalued it overnight to $35 per ounce, a 69% increase in value right in front of everyone's eyes. The people who handed over their gold didn't get a single penny more for it, but the government did. This wasn't a dramatic raid with soldiers at your door. No, it was all done through fear, through the threat of what might happen if you didn't comply. And this is what makes the idea of silver confiscation so real. Now, think about silver in the same light. If silver is critical to national security today, could the government take it just like they did with gold in 1933? Of course, they don't need to send troops to your door. The tools are already in place to legally seize your silver without warning. Now, let's talk about how quickly this could escalate. In 1934, just a year after the gold seizure, the government wasn't done. President Roosevelt passed another executive order, Executive Order 6814, which authorized the government to seize silver from private citizens and businesses. But this time, it wasn't just about national defense. This was about the government asserting control over a resource essential to the economy. But here's the kicker. They didn't even need to go door to door. They didn't need to bring in the military. They simply passed a law. And just like that, all privately held silver was handed over to the government at 50 cents an ounce. Now imagine the scene. Your silver that you spent years collecting or investing in is suddenly worth a fraction of what it was the day before. The government didn't send a warning. They didn't ask permission. They simply changed the rules. This wasn't the first time either. Back in 1873, Congress quietly passed the Coinage Act, making silver no longer official money. They didn't need to raid your home or drag you into court. Instead, they quietly removed silver's official role in the monetary system. Over time, the value of silver was drained away by law, and that's how confiscation happens in America. Not with force, but with policy. Now let's stack a few things together. First, you have the government's past actions, confiscating gold in 1933, seizing silver in 1934, and gradually removing silver from the monetary system altogether. That's a pattern of behavior that can't be ignored. But here's where it gets even more troubling. Silver isn't just another commodity anymore. It's been reclassified as a national security asset. Second, the supply of silver is already in a deficit. For years, demand has outpaced production, and experts agree this gap is only getting worse. With the rise of technologies like electric vehicles and solar panels, both of which depend on silver, the pressure on this precious metal is only increasing. Third, there's the government's readiness to act. The Staunus Defense Production Act of Talisai gives them the legal authority to seize resources in a national emergency, and they don't need to go through Congress for it. In a crisis, silver, like any critical material, could be grabbed just by changing the rules. So what happens if this continues? What if the government starts looking at your silver stash as something they need to secure the country's future? How long before they use their powers to claim it, just like they did with gold? The signs are already there, and the question is no longer if, but when? Now let's bring this closer to home. How does this affect you? You might not see silver as something that directly impacts your life, but imagine if it did. What happens if the government suddenly declares that the silver you've been holding as an investment or as a family heirloom is no longer yours? It's easy to think that this kind of thing only happens to other people. But what if it's your silver they come for next? Imagine the impact on you, your savings, your investments, everything you've worked to secure for your future. In an instant, it could all be redefined by someone else's agenda. It's a loss of control over your own wealth, over your future. And this isn't just a hypothetical concern. History shows us that this has happened before, and it can happen again. People didn't think it could happen with gold in 1933 either, yet it did. So if this feels familiar to you, if this rings a bell in your mind about how vulnerable your wealth might be, let us know in the comments below. Is it time to start thinking about what you own and what you might lose? Now let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Why does this happen? Why does the government have the ability to seize your assets with little to no resistance? It all comes down to the way systems of power are designed. The government doesn't need to physically force you to give up your silver. They just change the rules. The mechanisms at play are all built on leverage. The government controls the law, the narrative, and the structure of the financial system. In times of crisis, they don't just act out of necessity, they act out of prioritization. The needs of the nation, as defined by the government, outweigh your individual rights when national security is on the line. And the system is set up in such a way that most people don't notice until it's too late. It's about control, power, the ability to take something as critical as silver without ever sending a soldier to your door. The spectacle of it all is that most people won't even realize what's happening until they wake up to the new reality. So here's the unsettling part. The system is designed to let this happen. And when something's designed to work this way, it doesn't take much to trigger it. So where does this go from here? The truth is, we don't know, but we can see two possible paths unfolding. The first path is the status quo. We keep moving forward as if nothing will change. Silver stays in the market as a commodity, valuable but largely untouched by the government. But let's be clear, the government is already eyeing it as a critical resource. The question is, when will the trigger be pulled? The second path is one where the government acts. Whether it's a national emergency, an economic crisis, or a sudden geopolitical event, the legal tools are already in place to seize critical materials like silver. If the silver shortage continues to grow, if global tensions rise, the government could easily declare silver a national resource and just take it. They don't need an act of Congress. They don't need a press conference. They just need the right situation. Here's the most unsettling part. If things continue at this pace, the next move could already be in motion. A shift, a law, or a crisis that makes silver an essential asset to the country. And when that happens, silver could be taken with no warning, no resistance, and no coming back. So What does this all mean? It means that in a world where rules can change overnight, your wealth, your security can vanish without warning. Silver might not seem like a threat to most people today, but the moment it's declared a strategic resource, it can be controlled, seized, or redefined in the blink of an eye. The government has the tools. The legal mechanisms are already in place. All it takes is a crisis, a shift in priorities, and a change in the rules. And when that happens, you'll have little say in the matter. Here's the key takeaway. Your wealth isn't as secure as you think. And if you're not paying attention to how quickly things can shift, you might wake up one day to find your most trusted assets gone, taken by a system you didn't even realize was designed to act in ways like this. So what happens next? You tell me. If this video made you think twice about what you own and what could be at risk, hit that subscribe button for more insights. Because when things change, you'll want to be prepared for what comes next.